The draft. You said something about the draft.
I think the biggest talk with the draft is who's going to go number one.
So number one seems to be between Chet and Jabari. So Orlando has the number one pick. I think they're leaning towards Jabari. And I think OKC at 2 is leaning towards Chet. I think Banchero is going third to the Rockets.
Paolo,
Yeah, Paolo. He can play, bro. He can play. He looked like that NBA player at Duke. You know what I mean?
Welcome to the Clear in the Air podcast with D and Q.
I'm D.
And I'm Q. What's going on, man?
What's up, brother?
Hey, man. Same old, same old. Just getting at it. Today, we want to talk about the NBA playoffs. Talk about how things ended, some of the deets that took place during the finals, that is, specifically. And we're going to talk about just the playoffs in general. But I'm going to let you spearhead this one tonight, today. Talk to us, man.
Right. Well, I mean, pretty much. Well, first of all, I want to say we haven't done a sports topic in a minute, especially an NBA joint. So kind of got a lot to cover. Not a lot, but, you know, we got various topics. We can cover some. We're going to wait. So tonight, we're just going to kind of focus on the finals, the playoffs, and then just, you know, round up the season. So first, man, we got to talk about these finals. Golden State Warriors beat your boys, the Celtics. Well, some of your boys, because you kind of the Heat too, which I don't understand. But your city, your squad, the Celtics, beat them in 6 games. The Celtics was up 2-1 with took home court, and had a good chance to, you know, win the series, and lost a tough game 4, I want to say, home. Then lost game 5 and then game 6 is home as well. So ended up losing 3 games in a row. Steph Curry won his first finals MVP. Him, Draymond, Clay, and a few others are now 4-time champions. And yeah, Boston got close, but couldn't get it done. Now they got to figure out how they can get back here next year. So yeah, man. Andrew Wiggins played very well. Played solid defense on Tatum. Draymond didn't have his best series, but kind of came on towards the last couple of games. Draymond was just kind of being Draymond, arguing with the refs, and, you know, Steph played well, man. I know he had one kind of bad game. He might have had 2, but for the most part, he was consistent. He had 2. Okay. Yeah. And I think that second kind of bad game, he had a great assist game. I think he shot horribly from 3, but he started going to the rack, and, you know, he had a bunch of assists. Yeah, man. But Golden State won it. I was rooting for Boston. Kind of over Golden State. I don't know, man. Just I used to really like them and watch them play, but just over the years, I don't know. I don't know if it's just overkill with them. I think they kind of, I don't want to say cocky, but, you know, they front run. You know what I'm saying? Steph will start shimmy, and, you know, Draymond kind of get on my nerves with he just arguing, complaining, and I'm not a huge Clay fan no more. We talked about that, the whole top 75 thing, so I won't get back into that. But I respect the fact that he came back from 2 major injuries and is a champion once more. So I do respect that. So, yeah. But I was going for Boston all day, every day, which is big for me because I'm a Knicks fan. So the fact that I was actually rooting for one of our rivals. But, you know, at the end of the day, I know not rivals, but, you know, another team that's in our division. But I normally root for our conference anyway. So, and I really like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So, yeah.
So let's get something straight. I'm from Boston, so it's always a hometown team love. In my D Wade days, that's where the whole Heat thing comes from. D Wade ain't played for the Heat in a while. I still have hats. I still have all of that, so it is what it is when it comes to that. I don't really like this Jimmy Butler Heat team. I did love any team that Dwayne Wade had with the Heat. So that's to explain that, hopefully.
But how does that explain how you got off Boston, though?
Huh? It wasn't a matter of getting off of them. It was just having a love for a player more than a team per se, which kind of overshadowed that.
Okay. So did you follow D Wade when he went to Chicago and Cleveland too, or it was just easier to root for the Heat?
No, I did. I didn't understand the whole Chicago move. I didn't really. Yes, that's where you're from, but when you're used to seeing him, whether he's with Braun, whether he's with Shaq, winning championships, and it being his team, I just kind of felt like, why would you let him go to begin with? Only for you to bring him back, you know what I mean, to finish out his career. And we don't have to get into it. I just kind of felt like, he's one of those people where at the end of the day, he could have remained with one team his entire career.
Right. But the reason he did, well, first of all, he went to Chicago like a couple years too late because they had won a few years before that.
Right.
And then secondly, he left Miami because he was never the highest paid player there. And he felt like they shortchanged him at that point. He felt he had always sacrificed for the team. And he was like, all right, well, now is my time to be the highest paid player. They was trying to get other free agents in there. And so that's why he left and went to Chicago.
Yeah. And I appreciate your history as always.
Yeah. And then, they brought him back because he shouldn't have never left and he should retire a Miami Heat.
Yeah. And my point, regardless of who fault it was, because I guess I did kind of initially really blame them for, not making it happen for him. But I also realized, dog, you was past your prime and you stayed hurt. So they weren't really going to make you a top paid player at that point. It just didn't make any sense, And so when you got brought back getting paid with a player at your being beyond your prime, should have got paid. But that's that. So that's that breakdown. That's that breakdown.
So as a quasi Celtics fan, how did you feel about the fight?
Like you, I wanted them to win. I wanted them to win, even if, because Golden State is not going anywhere. Let's just be clear about that. Okay, they're not going anywhere. I'm not crowning them to be the champions next year.
Right.
But I am saying they're not going anywhere. When we do our top five, and they're going to be in the top five.
Right. They're going to always be in contention.
Always.
Right.
So that's just that. Will the Celtics get back to where they were? I don't know. And I feel like they may not. This was their chance. Mm-hmm. I will say, I will be honest and say I did not see them doing what they did. You look at how they turned the season around. 1 seed in the East. I didn't see that coming. And I remember what we said about the top 5 in the East. And we did not have Boston being that high. I remember what I said, and I'm ashamed by it in regard to where I felt they would be. So, I just didn't see them doing what they did throughout the playoffs and even in the finals. But I also did not see them losing 3 straight.
Right. Boston, I respected their turnaround, and then it was something about how they didn't duck the Nets in the playoffs in the first round. Remember, a couple teams was kind of ducking the Nets because they didn't want to play in the first round. They was like, "Nah, we want that." And I remember that last game they played in Memphis, and they could have sat their starters, but they won it, and they won at Brooklyn. So then I was like, "Oh, okay, they serious." But I think once Chris Middleton went out, I was like, "Wow, Boston can really get to the finals." Because like you, I was not a big believer in the Heat. I was like, if they could get past Giannis, you know what I mean? Because now he's just gonna play his heart out every night, bro. So I'm like, if they could get past Giannis, um, I think they can go to the finals. So yeah, I was on them getting to the finals. Yeah, pretty early, like especially when unfortunately Chris Middleton went down. So because you don't ever want to see injury.
Right. And I think for me, I went through a seesaw because I said kind of what you said, wow, this is really a thing here. And you were so impressed because the stuff that wins championships, defense. Defense was never really a question for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then when you seen them take a lead, 2-1 lead, it was like, oh. But I was scared because I said, this Warriors team is not just gonna go down.
Yeah.
They're not going to just let you, and I feel like we'll talk about this a little later. I feel like it's just you don't know where firepower is going to come from with the Warriors.
Right.
And that's what makes them dangerous.
Right.
You just don't know. Okay, Steph has a bad game. Doesn't matter. Clay could go off. Wiggins could go off. And even though he did not, Draymond might shock you and have, a triple-double where he drops 20 points and sets up people.
Right.
Or Poole
right.
may do insane shooting like Steph, so you just never know. And then I think
that closeout game, Otto Porter had like a few threes.
And then let's just go there, because I think what was the equalizer is you know who Marcus Smart is going to be, but what happens when you got a Marcus Smart on that other team?
Right.
And you get in the Gary Payton second situation.
Right.
Now it's equal. So there is no. So it's just.
Right. Yeah, he came back just in time, and he bringing that energy. He hit a couple threes, and he stay above the rim. So so yeah, man, it was tough, bro. But with that being said, I think I'm like you. I thought the biggest thing would be the offense for the Celtics, trying to match the Golden State Warriors offense every night. And yes, I was surprised at how effective Smart was scoring this year, and even in the playoffs. But I was like, man, he gonna have that game where he not, you know what I mean? And like it's like every night, and then you gotta get threes from Grant Williams. You got to get points from Horford, and they was kind of giving them that, but it was them last few games where they wasn't getting that consistently, man.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about Tatum, but Tatum just kind of disappeared down the stretch, especially in the fourth quarters. So I wanted to ask you this though, bro. So, Steph, he won Finals MVP, which is his first one. A lot of people were saying that Steph really hadn't had a great finals in his career. Even that year, I think Iguodala won it. They were saying Steph could have won Finals MVP then, but they gave it to Iguodala because he held LeBron to 30. But anyway, but this year he got it. This finals he got it, no doubt about it. So I guess I've heard it out there, the narrative being that if Steph wins his fourth ring, which he did, and gets the Finals MVP, he's in the top 10 of all time. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Do you agree, disagree?
I want to share something, and I'm hoping that I can remember this as accurately as possible.
Okay.
So, and this actually is a perfect topic since we're talking about the Warriors. I'm sure you've heard about, what Barkley said about KD, his clapback, all of that. And I think how you win your championships are important. So I'm going to say this, but then I'm going to make a comment on this. So correct me if I'm wrong. KD was there for 2 championships, correct?
2 championships, 2 finals MVPs.
Okay. So 2 of the 4, you had a cheat code situation. Now, that being said,
And Kevin Durant was the best player on the team.
Yeah.
Them 2 years, okay?
So you can kind of disagree with Barkley because he was the bus rider. I'm sorry, the bus driver. He was the bus driver.
Right.
Even though Barkley says he was not, I think I agree with what Legs said, Tim Legler, in saying, nah, he was the bus driver. It was a borrowed bus.
That's the problem. Right.
It was a borrowed bus. Right. So now, even though that's in the lens and the context of KD, let's flip that to Steph. Given that that's who he had on his team, he never, and in those 2 championships, he didn't have to drop amazing numbers per se. And yes, Steph has had some struggles. But at the end of the day, I will say this. Because of the success that Golden State had before KD, you could have said that he still would have won those championships without KD, in all fairness. Okay? You could say that. And obviously,
right, but they was just coming off that 63 63-win team, but losing to Bron in the finals. 73-win team, but losing to Bron in the finals.
Agree, but we talking about Bron.
Right.
So, if we said you lost to Jimmy Butler, or you lost to
but you lost a 3-1 lead, though. You lost a 3-1 lead in the finals.
Agreed.
And now, Draymond had a big part in that because he got himself suspended. So, but you still had 3 chances to win it, and 2 of them was at home.
Agreed.
And Game 7, Draymond did play.
Agreed. I still say, as much as we don't want to, give Bron his credit sometimes, I'm not saying us.
Oh, I was about to say, yeah.
But people don't want to give him his credit. We talking about Bron. It's like AI said, we talking about practice. We talking about Bron. Right. So you got to give that as a pass. Now, do I say he's a top 10 player because of this? I want to give it to him, being that he's the greatest shooter of all time, and that's not up for debate. Okay, there's it's just not up for debate. There's nothing else he can do as far as shooting that would put him a class above anyone else. He's already a class above anyone else. To me, it really makes a difference what I just said. The conversation
to you, okay? That's fine.
Well, no, because you're asking me.
Yes, I am.
So to me, I think it really does make a difference how you win those chips, and you kind of went there yourself for those 2 of his 4. Now, but I think it's a tough conversation to have because I do think that it kind of gives you it's a wash. He's won 2 without KD. He won 2 with KD. And I'm going to say, I want to give it to him, but I'm going to say no. Let me see you do it again without KD. That will give you 5. Okay? Not only will it give you 5, but it will say that you had 3 times that you did, that there's no times you're going to say that it was a fluke because it was 3 times. It was more times I did it without KD, with me being the bus driver and Steph, as opposed to the 2 times I won it with KD. So I want to give it to him because I don't like being a certain way towards players. I think sometimes when we say things, we diminish who they are as players. I think even all the KD stuff, you know, it's diminishing to a degree, even though you could agree with some parts of it. I don't ever want to diminish Steph's greatness. I'm going to still say no. Let me see you do it again.
Okay, respect. Next question. Jason Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
Does his, I'm going to ask a question and then we can go back if we need to, but does his lackluster finals, especially in the late games, in the late, like fourth quarters, does that hurt his superstar status, his, you know, does that tarnish his early reputation right now? Because and I'm gonna ask, and I'm gonna tell you why, or I'm gonna ask why, because a lot of people were saying Jason Tatum was on the verge of superstardom and was possibly top 5.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hovering right around that 5th spot. You know what I'm saying? And so, and then he had a great first round against KD. A lot of people thought he played great defense with KD, or KD made KD struggle. Second round versus Milwaukee, and third round against the Heat. I mean, just had a great, a very good playoffs, and then he got to the finals, and you know, kind of struggled a little bit. So, do you think that the lights were just too bright, the stage was just too big? Is it just, you know, just like everybody else, they got to pay their dues first? You know what I mean? So, how you feel about that?
Do I think it tarnishes him? I'll say it can. It could. If he never gets back there, yes, it does tarnish him. Some people will, it will tarnish. Yes, it does tarnish him, but I think it needs to be context with that. It's going to tarnish him because people don't care about what your potential is or what you could do. As of right now, I don't want to say bust, but people don't look at you as being legit. They don't look at you as, it's kind of almost like how, and we'll talk about them later, it's kind of almost like how you'll look at Booker. You got to the finals, you shrunk, you didn't make it back there this year. So, for example, if they don't make it back next year, it's going to be very hard for people to have confidence in him. It's going to be hard for people to call him a superstar because you were almost there and people felt like you needed that to solidify you being a superstar. If you never make it back, they're going to say, okay, just like how they tried to play Braun and say it was a fluke bubble championship. So people will find an excuse, right? People will find an excuse to discredit. And that's what people look to do. They look to discredit first. They're not going to give you the props first and allow you to grow into it. They're going to discredit you and make you prove them wrong. Point in case, I just said with Steph, prove it to me. Do it again. I'm not sold completely. Do it again. So that's some of the context. To answer the question, I do think he shrunk under the lights. It's your first time being there. Taking your feet off the gas, which I'm not necessarily saying that he did that in terms of effort, but I will say he did it in terms of it was the results. Okay.
I think that last game, but he only shot like, how many shot attempts did he have in the second half? Was it like 5?
It was low.
It's low. Hey, I know he only had 2 points. It was a dunk he had. Yeah, I mean, like you can't go out like that. But I mean, you got to go out fire. You know what I mean? Especially,
Right.
you know, your team can struggle to score at times. And
Right.
thankfully, Jaylen Brown was scoring.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's always going to be a tough day if they're both not. because it's hard for you to do something to stop two sides of wings. It's very hard for you to stop that. And so, do you give Golden State the credit and say they stopped it? Well, dog, you didn't.
Oh, dog, yeah. Wiggins made it tough, bro. I ain't taking nothing away from Wiggins.
Yeah,
Wiggins made it tough.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of how Jaylen Brown was able to get free.
Right.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I ain't
Hopefully I answered your question. I just to be clear through all of the muck that I said, I think.
I mean, you said it can, especially if he don't get back. So I think more so, do you think it's tarnished right now?
Of course, because again, people expect for you to present, to provide the results. You don't provide them. I don't give you credit beforehand. I have an expectation of do, and if you don't, that's it. I think again, I think he just, now he knows you've gone through the hurt. Now you got all summer to think about it. You know what it takes now. You didn't provide what you needed. If you ever get back there, I'm not guaranteeing a win, obviously, but if you ever get back there, at least your effort level, we should see an increase in that.
Right. Yeah. I feel like it's definitely tarnished right now, bro. Just kind of the way he went out. If he would have went out firing, then yeah, but the fact that you wasn't really shooting, and then when you was just kind of off. And he had like a bad last few games. You know what I mean? And towards the end of the games, I think he had a good couple first halves, and then the second halves, he was just kind of nowhere to be found. And I think what's going to hurt them is the fact that they won game one, dog. They stole home court, but they hadn't really been a good home playoff team all playoffs. You know what I mean? They had kind of lost a few games at home, but you gotta take advantage of that against the Warriors, man. You just cannot, So, but anyway, Warriors are champions. Celtics, I agree. I think it's gonna be tough for them to get back because the East, everybody's gonna come back stronger. Well, we don't know what's the latest with Brooklyn right now, but Middleton's gonna come back. The Heat is gonna be formidable. We don't know what Philly's gonna do. It's gonna be interesting in the East. So, how you feel about Wiggins, bro? Like we kind of talked about him. You feel like he's validated? You know what I'm saying? As far as being a champion.
I was glad to see Wiggins.
Right.
Get because again, people discredit you first.
Right.
And people don't realize, especially a lot of non-basketball people. When I say non-basketball people who haven't played, I'm even talking about some of us. We've played, but did you play at a level where you could really talk? And so, he was doing his thing in Minnesota. He was kind of the go-to guy for years. It's in Minnesota, bro.
Exactly.
So it's very hard. You got to give him his props. He was still solid out there. It's like Kevin Love. He was solid out there. Can't take away from his talent because of how the team performs per se. So I felt like it was good to see him of all, because I know I'm kind of like you. Like, I don't really root for Golden State. Draymond kind of, he's a pest in my mind. He's not someone I root for. I'm not hating on him, but he's not somebody I really root for. I think his disposition oftentimes is very arrogant, which is what led KD out. The crazy part is he was able to back up his stance in regard to, we don't need you. So that's the part that kind of sickens me, but you got to give him his props and his love for that, because it's put up or shut up. And it's not a lot of people who can run their mouth and do that. But again, Wiggins, it's good to see him get one. He played well. I mean, he's, I think also a lot of times the expectations that people have are just wild. He's one of those, if you sleep on him, he will drop a solid 20, because let's please not forget, kind of remind me of Marcus Smart in terms of saying that when he gets around other players, you can forget he was the man on his team in college. He was the one dropping buckets,
Number 1 overall pick, man.
Yeah. So when you look at that, you gotta say, oh yeah, that's right. Golden State has a lot of guns. And I just think also the way they play allows you to be the man on any given night.
Right. I was happy for Wiggins. I think of everybody on that team, I was happy for him the most.
Yes.
I think some of the questions people had about him, I had them too. And the biggest one is his motor.
Mm-hmm.
He's just so naturally gifted sometimes that sometimes he has that disposition like he doesn't really care, or maybe he's not giving it his all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because he's so talented. He has so much God-given talent that everything just looks easy.
Right.
But it just looked like sometimes was he always playing hard, you know what I'm saying, his motor. So then, you get drafted first by Cleveland, you don't even get a jersey. They just ship you out to Minnesota, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then you in Minnesota, bro. Like we not paying no attention to Minnesota. Like we just not. And then y'all were a losing team. So yeah, you were putting up solid numbers but on a losing team. And then I remember when it was time for him to get paid to sign his big deal, the owner of the Timberwolves was like, if I give you this deal, I don't want you to get complacent. Like I want you to continue to work hard and improve and this and that. Like that was I hate to say it, a red flag, but that was kind of a red flag. Like even your owner kind of like, all right, if I give you this money, are you just gonna be like, all right, I got it, I'm good now, blah blah blah, or are you still gonna try to improve? And so then he got traded to Golden State, and I remember the whole time he was at Golden State, they was gonna use it as a trading chip. Remember he was just like, all right, because I think was that when Clay got hurt, or maybe Steph got hurt, or maybe when they both was out. I remember they was like, we're gonna use Wiggins, because he can score. But when everybody come back, we just trade him. And then they did the same thing with D'Angelo Russell. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They got D'Angelo Russell just to trade him. But I respect the fact that he was like, nah, I'm gonna ball out and show y'all that I shouldn't be a trade chip, a bargaining chip. You know what I'm saying? I should be on the squad. So I respect that about him, and I'm happy for him. Draymond, I feel the same way. I'm actually a Draymond fan. Not fam, I like Draymond. I don't dislike him. I can see why people dislike him, but I'm tired of the antics. I'm tired of the constant complaining. I'm tired of the bickering, the being condescending. I was about to say condensation. Just yeah. I'm just kind of over it.
And I think I go back to what you said. I'm not against Draymond. It's just when you do all of that, it takes away from the game.
Right.
Meanwhile, he would say some of the things that happen in the game takes away from the game. But I just think it gets to a point to where you're purposely trying to be either offensive or trying to stir the pot.
Yeah, you just being unruly for no reason.
Yeah, and that gets old, and so therefore it's kind of a bad situation in terms of like when you think this dude is almost at $1 million in fines, and you know that you are viewed as a hothead with refs, but it doesn't bother you at all because you keep going on. It's as if he feels like if he tones it down, then he'll lose. It's kind of like you're okay with the bad boy image.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just getting old, bro.
Yeah, it's too much.
It's just getting old. And the thing is, I actually like to hear Draymond talk about other things. You know what I'm saying? Like off the court stuff, and you know what I'm saying. But just, I feel like you just messing up the flow of the game, bro. Like stop complaining about every call. It's like you never committed a foul.
Right.
You have. You know what I mean? Like chill out.
I guess let's talk about playoffs in general, man.
Let's see who let's go team wise first, then player. So, who was your most surprising team in the playoffs and your most disappointing team?
It sounds bad, but
Okay.
it's true. Celtics were my most surprising team.
Mm-hmm. Hey, you alluded to that earlier.
Yeah.
Right.
Suns were my most disappointing team. And honestly, I'm saying most disappointing, but I didn't have them going back to the finals to begin with. It's one of those prove me wrong type situations because CP stays hurt. Booker, you showed us against the Bucks, same thing like we talking about with Jason, but you just did it before you got back there. That blowout, bro, and to the Mavericks.
Yeah, oh God.
And my runner-up is the Mavericks for most surprising team.
Yeah, that's who I was gonna pick.
I'm sorry.
No, you good. No. I know, but you picked the Celtics and you alluded to that earlier, and I was saying I thought the Celtics would go far. So, oh my bad. You done, bro?
I'm good.
Okay. My most surprising team, I was gonna say the Heat, just because I was not a believer in them. I didn't think they were. I thought they was gonna be the Atlanta that didn't lose, and for them to have got to the conference finals. But no, that my most surprising team is definitely the Mavericks. I thought they were going to beat Utah, but for him to have been out those first few games, and Trey Burke came up, not Trey Burke, what's my man name? Well, Jalen Brunson came out of nowhere, not nowhere because he could play, but went off those games. But I did not see them beating Phoenix, dog. I did not see them beating Phoenix, and they won by God knows how many in Game 7, which leads me to my most disappointing team, which is Phoenix. I love CP3. I really want him to get a ring. Got close last year, but couldn't get it done. They had such a great regular season this year. I didn't think there was no chance Dallas could beat them because I thought Dallas was just too Luka-centric. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't think they would get enough scoring for the others because when Luka plays, they kind of watch him. But I think that was a blessing in disguise for Dallas for him to have been out because they learned how to survive without him. Excuse me. So, and then he kind of played differently when he came back. Like he would let Dinwiddie, do his thing. He would let Brunson bring it up. So, but in no way, shape, or form did I see the Suns losing like that at home in a Game 7. I'm disappointed. Everybody. Booker, I'm looking at him a little differently now. He's a very nice player, very solid player. But I don't know, man. I think he needs to get stronger for one. Like his body type is just, I feel like cats can kind of double him and do things to kind of frustrate him. Aiden, I mean, he could be a beast, but if you got a center that's just as mobile as him and as athletic as him, he kind of struggles. You know what I mean? So we saw Giannis last year, which was the team fault because they didn't build a wall. They just let Giannis and Ayton play one-on-one. That's a mismatch all day.
Bully ball all day.
Right. And then this year, in the first round, dude from the Hornets was given to Valanciunas. And then what's the name was playing pretty well. Is it Kleber? Kleber was playing well against him. So, and then you heard the internal stuff. You know what I'm saying, that he immature and he was upset all year because they didn't max him out. So he might be actually on the trading block. But definitely disappointed in Phoenix, man. I thought this was the year they should have done it because teams were kind of nicked up. They were a year older, but that hunger from last year, the people on the East was kind of hurt. And they didn't even get. I was like, at least get to the Western Conference Finals against Golden State. If you lose to Golden State,
that's okay.
That's okay. Right. Like, they got championship medal. You don't. But dog, to not even get there and lose to Dallas like that at home in a Game 7. So yeah. I was impressed with how New Orleans played as well. And I don't know, that might be detriment indictment on Phoenix. But I thought New Orleans played well those few games. CJ and Valanciunas and Herb Jones. And yeah, I thought they played pretty well. What did you think about the playoffs as a whole? Like, you thought they were kind of exciting? Did you
It
think
was. I will say this probably was one of the most exciting ones. I actually liked the bubble. It was different, so it was exciting. Not saying that's what I would want to see every year. Obviously, there was no need for it to be every year. But I actually like this year's again because we weren't talking about the Pelicans before, and you talking about the Pelicans without Zion, which, by the way, saw a picture of him today, and if the picture was legit, and I forget who it was from. I don't know if it was ESPN or somebody else, but they tweeted a picture of him. He looked like he's slimming down.
Okay, I know it's his Zion 2 Jordan sneaker just dropped. Yeah. Or just they showed pictures of it, so I saw pictures of that. Yeah. So yeah, it looked like he might be slimming down a little bit.
But I definitely thought it was exciting. To me, I feel like while there's still a lot of questions in the league about who teams are going to become, I feel like we may have gotten a glimpse of what some of the things to expect in the future. So for example, the Pelicans, it was good to see that. I think what we should expect in the future is for the Suns to do what they did moving forward.
Right.
You know, I think there's a lot of questions in the East.
Yeah. I thought the playoffs were kind of weird. Like the earlier rounds, games were competitive and close, and then there was a period where it was just a bunch of blowouts.
Yeah.
You know, like non-competitive games, and then it got back to being close games again. So it was the ebbs and flows in this playoffs was kind of crazy. It was kind of a weird.
Even in the finals.
Yeah. It was just like, Golden State was smashing them game one, and then Boston came back and, stole that game. Then game two, I think Boston was like, yo, we got one. So they just kind of, not folded, but, then they won game three. And then the last three games, it was just like, where y'all at? So yeah.
I think, not to stay here, but to stay here. That's also where the Chris Paul slander came in so heavily.
Yes. Your boy Pat Bev went hard.
Yeah. Well, talk to us about that a little bit.
I mean, CP, man, we talking about bad games. He had a terrible game 7. I think he had a couple last few games. He had a not too great series against Dallas, man. And so Pat Bev, who is one of CP3's nemesis, he was playing for Minnesota. They had lost, so he was doing some work on ESPN. He pretty much called CP3 a cone. He can't play defense. It was like, nobody's really scared to play CP3. Just saying some kind of disparaging things against CP3. And, the world either thought it was funny or thought it was true. Some people came to Chris Paul's defense, but
very few.
Right.
There's been
that he's a tough teammate and he rubs people the wrong way. A lot. There are a lot of guys that didn't like playing with CP3. So, but Matt Barnes is one of the few that came out strong.
He did.
Favor CP3 and went hard at Pat Bev. So, and people taking it with a grain of salt with Pat Bev because it's Pat Bev.
Yeah.
But I mean, I like Pat Bev. So, I think he found his profession once his playing days are over. I like those I like those wristbands, brother.
I do too. He reminds me of Draymond to a degree because it's the antics.
Right.
The difference with him is on-court antics, and this is the first time we're seeing him off court with the antics as well. So it kind of says there's a bias to you when you speak, but it is what it is. We're
Right.
not talking about Pat Bev.
Right.
I'm not gonna give him airtime.
He dogging Pat Bev.
So just going back to CP3.
Why you dogging Pat Bev?
Just going back to CP3.
You just gonna ignore my question, what?
Just going back to CP3. I don't think he's gonna win a chip. I think you can't go to another team and think that's going to help you do it.
This was it, bro.
And I don't think there's too many changes you can make, because if you get rid of Aiden, what are you getting? Like, it's not a Aiden for this guy. It's going to be Aiden for multiple pieces that now you got to learn to play with them and fit in with them. So
I'm hearing that, my bad, not to cut you off. I'm hearing that Atlanta may be interested in Aiden. So maybe they'll trade John Collins for him. And he's not as big as Aiden, but he can kind of play that, that role in the paint, that rim runner, you know what I'm saying?
The Lob City days are over, bro.
Yeah. And I don't know if John Collins is going to make you significantly better.
He's not.
So.
He's not. He at least with Aiden he is a young player who's still developing.
Right.
Who has some things to figure out, but he has your traditional big man type of game. Collins does not have that. He's your athletic big who, again, the Lob City days are over with, bro. They're over with. I mean, yeah, they're over with. And again, I feel like CP3, his age and his health, you're getting closer to those days where you're gonna have to make that mellow transition.
Yeah, but I don't think he's there yet. And also, what I think is he's not really looked at to score like that. You know what I'm saying? Melo and Melo was in his mind. He was like, "Oh, Melo." You know what I'm saying? I don't need to come off the bench, and I can score this and that. I think CP3, I think it's easier for him because he plays the point guard. So, and he's a true point guard. So he wants to set people up, this and that. The problem with him is the people guard him going to be younger and taller, more physical. You know what I mean? And he ain't going to be, and CP3, he's still smart and crafty. So he's still going to hold his own. But you remember that first series when they had Herb Jones on him, bro? And he was bothering CP3. But then CP3 had that perfect game, like 13 for 13 from the field. So
which goes and it goes against what you say, not purposely, but because even though he's not looked at to score, he does score. And when he does, I mean, dude, he was having great fourth quarters that was closing out games.
Right. But remember those games, Booker was out. So he had
doesn't matter. Because again, if you're not looked at to score, so basically what you're saying is we really only have two solid options to score.
Correct. I do agree with that.
That's what you're saying, because you got the Cam Johnsons and the other role players, but they're role players. They're not looked at to produce 20, 25 a night, and that's who CP3 is setting up. No, CP3 is a part of it. Was the same reason that when he was in Houston, he wasn't, yes, he was the setup guy, but he was the setup guy who will give you threes at the top.
Right.
You know what I mean? He gonna set you up. He gonna give you that 15-footer.
Yeah, he gonna
kill you all game.
Murder the mid range.
So again, he is looked at to score. So the problem you have is, like you say, you're getting older. And so what you're gonna have to do is turn into that strictly, not right now. I think he got another 2 years, but again, the health is going to play a part. And so regardless.
Yeah, and see, he really didn't get hurt last year. He was did he get nicked up? He got
knickknacks, but again,
yes, he did. He went out for a while. But I mean, it was kind of early though. That's what I'm saying.
But right. But the point is, okay, when do you go out this year? And then next year, when do you go out after that?
What I'm saying was he didn't get nicked up in the playoff run when normally he does. They missed the opportunity because he actually was healthy this playoff run. And they ain't even get to the Golden State joint.
I agree with you, but when we're talking about all the other changes that could happen, getting rid of Aiden, if that is, because I think that's a very strong possibility. You start talking about all of that, now the team is different. So it may be expected more of you, even if they bring in other players to supplement that. Because again, you're talking about how does it mix, all right? And so it's funny because we're 2 years ago when we started, we were looking at. Now you're talking about Paul CP3 getting the slander that Ben Simmons got before, and we don't gotta stay on this too long, but we know what that whole Ben Simmons situation was at that point. It was warranted. We're looking at it now, and we don't even know, like you say, how the Brooklyn team is going to look. And he still this summer shared a little bit of slander just because of the way, like, dude, they needed you and you didn't even come. You just came in street clothes, looking like you was fresh off of a fashion show somewhere.
Yeah, he was freshly dressed on the bench.
Yeah. It ain't put no points in the bucket though.
That is correct.
So correct. Yeah, man. So I think that's the NBA playoffs. I think since we're talking about pieces and some moves that could be made, it's only right that we talk about the draft.
So I guess we're putting the cap on the playoffs, and we're gonna talk about the draft. Yeah, are we clearing the air?
No, let's talk about the draft.
Let's talk about the draft.
I think the biggest talk with the draft is who's going to go number one.
Right. And who's going to go number one? And that fourth pick. And that fourth pick, that's like the two things that's dominating the pre-draft talk.
Right.
So number one seems to be between Chet and Jabari. So Orlando has the number one pick. I think they're leaning towards Jabari. And I think OKC at 2 is leaning towards Chet.
How do you feel about that? Who do you feel is the better choice?
I'm okay with that. Chet, the big thing is his body. He's so slim, bro. So how's that going to translate to the NBA game? You know what I mean? When he's going to face guys just as tall as him, but with a body with more girth than he has. Excuse me. I'm okay with Jabari going one. I think he has it all. 6'10", can shoot, athletic, play D. Played at Auburn in the SEC, so he played some good competition. Didn't have too great of a tournament, but I can see young freshman. What is it, like 18, 19? So
he's 19.
19. So I can see him being number one. I have no issues with that. I think Banchero is going third to the Rockets.
Paolo,
Paolo. He can play, bro. He can play. He looked like that NBA player at Duke. You know what I mean? And in Spurs, and then he would kind of disappear. But they had such a stacked team as well. But I think of those three, Jabari is probably the most worthy of being number one. Yeah. With Chet number 2, and then Paolo number 3. Now, number 4 is where it gets interesting, because right now Sacramento has number 4. Everybody wants Jaden Ivey. Everybody thinks Jaden Ivey is going to go number 4. It's a bunch of teams that want to jump up to get 4. And I think Sacramento is willing to trade number 4 just because they we got De'Aaron Fox. So, we got rid of Halliburton, but they got Devion Harmon from Baylor. So they got who they feel are good guards. So they, I think they're using the 4th pick as a bargaining chip. But several teams seem to want Jaden Ivey at number 4. So I think that's where it's going to get interesting. So, yeah.
I agree.
Oh, another thing. will Duke have 5 first-round picks? I don't think they will, but that's another story coming out of the draft.
Just real quick, I think not necessarily worthy of discussion, but given that our last podcast episode, and go check it out, Father's Day, the importance of stepfathers, we were heavily talking about Shaq. His son Sharif was actually working out with the Lakers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was working out with the Lakers.
So is he done at LSU?
If he's working out,
yeah, I guess so. But what's up with his heart, though? I think is he still having those issues?
I don't think he's still having issues, but it won't matter because teams will look at that as a concern. Could he potentially go to the league? Yes, on the strength of his dad, but it might be a much lower draft pick than what we expect because of the idea of.
So he's in the draft. He has his name in the draft.
I definitely need to check that, but I mean, again, I saw that he was working out for the Lakers, so you can make the assumption that yes, because you're not working out for any teams typically if you're not looking at getting drafted.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah, I didn't know that. I think I heard he had left LSU maybe when the transfer portal again, but we wishing him best, bro. Sharif. Like Sharif. I really like Sharif.
For sure. Well, man, let's go ahead and clear the air.
Yep.
All right. It's going to be interesting to really see what happens in the NBA, I would say, over the next few years. You know, I've said it. I really feel like the Warriors, they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. And with them not going anywhere, you have to always know, dude, they don't have an old team. So, you know, that is something that you got to keep in mind as you look at other teams doing things. They kind of already have this situation figured out while other teams are trying to figure stuff out, you know.
The crazy thing about the Warriors are they have a mix of old and young.
Yes.
Like they don't really have no middle. You know what I'm saying? So Steph, Draymond, Clay, they're considered kind of old. I think
Right.
Steph is like 32. You know, and they all kind of around that age. And then they got super young cats, Poole, Kuminga, Moody. You know what I mean? So I tell you what's really beneficial for the Warriors and where a lot of other teams and executives get upset is because a lot of their talent are homegrown, which means they've drafted them. So they can afford to keep them.
Right.
And they can afford to pay them, whereas the average team can't keep everybody because they've either got them in free agency or they got them in trades. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
All these people that are in Golden State's organization, they drafted. Right. You know what I mean? Except for Wiggins, everybody else has been there.
Right.
You drafted Steph, you drafted Draymond, you drafted Clay, you drafted Wiseman, you drafted Poole, you drafted Moody, you drafted Kuminga.
Mm-hmm. And Wiggins was an X factor in my eyes because you knew what he could do, and it came in handy at times when it was needed.
Right. So that's the one non-homegrown product that you kind of got to pay. And then at the time when you took on his contract, again, because of what Minnesota's owner was feeling with Wiggins, like he got the max, but it wasn't like the crazy money that people are getting now. You see what I mean? So they lucked up with that. So it's I do think the Warriors should be happy that they won it this year. Because I think next year it's gonna be tough. They definitely gonna be in the mix, but again, and I hate to bring up the Lakers, but you know, You never know what they're gonna do. Kawhi be back for the Clippers. Murray will be back for Denver.
Mm-hmm.
We're not sure what Utah gonna do. We don't really worry about them either because they're more of a regular season team. Phoenix, you're not sure what they're gonna do, but I feel like Golden State, y'all should have got this one. Get this one out the way. You know what I mean? Because it's gonna be harder next year. And like you say, I feel like that's gonna be the direction of the league as a whole. I think you said the next few years will be interesting. I think the next few months are gonna be interesting. Starting with the draft, and then free agents, got some big name free agents. What's Kyrie gonna do? What Harden gonna do? Are the Lakers gonna try to trade West, or are they gonna try to keep him? So I think these next few months are gonna be very, very telling about the league. So
I agree with what you said, because after these next few months is really going to determine these next few years in my eyes. So
correct.
I agree with what you said. Must be said first before my statement. So I agree. I want to just say in advance, congratulations to all of the draftees, those whose lives will change
Ever.
as we clear the air. This is a perfect way to end this. My hope, my prayer is that every young man, not just the top 5, not the top 10, every young man who gets drafted, that they have solid people around them that can help them change their lives forever. That the money you make in the league, the championships you could potentially, make or achieve, that success, that is, approach with humility, because as we're talking about, every year is different.
Right.
And just because you made it one year doesn't mean you make it. Sometimes you get an opportunity to start. You get an opportunity to have an impact. My hope is, again, just that these young men understand the significance of this, and that they don't squander their money, that they have solid people around them to keep them grounded, and that they just have success in the NBA throughout their careers. That's as we clear the air, my hope for these young men. All right. As always, we want to thank you guys for your support. We want to ask that you go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel for the video experience. We also want to ask that you follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts for the audio experience. We do want to ask that you follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter.
Yep.
Follow us on TikTok.
Yep.
Follow us on Facebook.
Yes, sir.
Peace.
Peace.